talking about,
Start
guys?
streaming, stop streaming.
No.
What are we looking at your
Consciousness
screen
is
on?
always a
Is
good-
the live on your screen or on us?
It's on y'all.
So you can look at stuff on.
If I'm sure, but I'm pretty sure that I'm sure.
What did he
I'm
say?
not being sure about
What
it.
I would like to, Alan wants to see is the eye that knows me when I know that I know that I know.
It's, no, it's the eye that is me. What is
And what I would like to see is the eye that sees me when I know that I know
That's
that I
not the
know.
very beginning of it, Joe. That's the middle line. There's something before what I would like to see.
Let's see how you guys are sounding right now.
That was Alan Watts, right?
Yes. That was,
That was Alan Watts. I don't know any of those quotes.
say Alan Watts, I see poem, or Eyes at Sea poem.
Yeah. This is it.
There was a young man who said, though,
It seems that I know that I know. But I
Yeah.
would like to see is
the eye that
the
knows
eye that
me.
knows me when I know that I know that I know.
That's right.
That's right. There was a young man who. Are we recording? Are we live?
We're just streaming because it's gonna save to the YouTube channel.
We're not live though.
No, we are live.
It doesn't say live.
Where?
Shouldn't that be green? The thing that says live.
I just refreshed the page. We should be live right now, like down here.
Did you go through the checklist?
Can you not see down there?
No.
I don't need to go through their check.
Streaming now,
well,
live streaming.
I need
Live streaming.
I wonder if I can pull it up and see it here. We're
Tales
doing some new things this time. We're doing
New
YouTube
things.
instead of the other things, so I'm hoping that we can. And what are we called?
Tales from the trip. Huh. Yeah, that's right. It just came back. They decided it was gonna stop being funky.
I see green.
Gaming, we can change the category to something more appropriate, like
This is right here. Live stream.
people and blogs. What would we call this?
I would call
Live
it like,
stream.
No,
Hold on.
Nope.
Let's look at the delay.
I need you to look at the screen.
Yep, this is me. I can see me here.
I would call it, well, as far as topics or categories, something like philosophy.
But they got these right here that I'm showing you guys.
Let's hear them. Where you got?
You
Oh,
guys cannot
huh.
see them?
Well, something
Okay,
other than
yeah.
gaming.
Scroll down some so we can see a
Something
little
other than
better.
gaming.
Nope, not that far.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Right there. All right, so we got music, pets and animals, sports, travel and events, gaming, comedy, entertainment, news and politics, how-to and style. Is there more down below? Education?
Education, science, and technology, and then nonprofits and activism.
Well, we're just going to be entertainment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, you are.
You're gonna have to watch
What are you going to do?
smacking.
Are you going to eat quieter? More quietly, rather?
I'm gonna need you to.
I didn't think so. You're good down there?
I need you to.
Whatever. We're just messing around.
Yeah. I'm almost done.
If we were doing it legit, we wouldn't be here, right?
You would, maybe.
Well, there's
here
no
might be a lot
acoustical room
different,
with
though.
proper lighting
I
and
mean,
stuff here.
here would be a lot different. There'd be a stripper pole.
Yeah, maybe down there in front of the fireplace and
Be
stuff. I
something
don't
cool
know.
going
Right.
on.
That'd be cool. We got a fireplace.
I'm done with it.
It's
I've
legit.
thought about that, but we'd have to rearrange the living room where it wouldn't be like a living room anymore.
Well, that defeats the whole purpose of the name.
Yeah, that's right.
Tales from the trip.
Because like all this that you see up here would be down there.
Fireside throwdown.
I don't know. You guys got friends? Tell them, or you know anybody? Just tell them to get on. You know, anybody you know, just send them a text right now. Send them this. Tell them to get on. You know what I mean?
Just
Send
pause
me the
it.
link.
Shoot it to your Facebook. You know. Yeah, you do this.
There's like
Well, I mean-
little,
Let's
there's
get
like
this
these
thing
little
popping.
white things everywhere.
We already got 2 people in here.
I'm one of them.
Okay. My mom's my #1
That was
Just all
one of
the
the
different-
one of the songs Kyle wrote one like a couple years back was about he never plays his own tracks, so he's not adding to his play count.
Why is that?
Because
Hey,
he's
there's
not trying
us.
to front that other people that it's been played that much by other people liking it. The computer set up and play their own videos
Oh,
over and
constantly.
over again.
Yeah. That's kind of crappity crap.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to profit off of it, then it kind of makes sense. But then they catch you doing it after a while. So
That's not terrible on the delay, and it sounds pretty good, I say.
let's see where we're at on the.
Talk to me, Goose.
Do you guys got the chat up over there?
I think so.
So we got music, pets and animal sports, travel and events, gaming, comedy, entertainment, news and politics. It's way behind. Is there more down below? Let me catch up to.
And actually, I prefer to be behind
Is
you.
there a current like?
Way behind. Yeah, there we go.
Having it just a hair behind.
We got
somebody.
the three-peater happening.
We've got a who now?
Yeah, that's because I've got my volume up. I'm gonna.
Three-peater. It's
I'm gonna kill it
infinite
on here.
fadeaway. It's like being in a bathroom with all the walls are mirrors. You ever had that happen
Alright.
to you?
So
Yeah.
My friend Ramon,
Yep.
his guest bathroom,
Patrick,
all mirrors.
I have locked myself out of my laptop. I can't remember my password. No, I still have not been able to get back into it for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks. Well, I need a flash drive. Do you have a flash drive? Like a USB flash drive with nothing on it?
Yeah, a bunch of them.
I need to use one of those.
Okay.
Because that's what I need to do, a password recovery on this thing.
Yeah, I got one. Wanna do it now?
Sure.
We got one.
Have you got a blank one right now?
Yeah, I got a bunch of them in a pile of.
Just like a USB flash drive? Like,
That's right.
yeah.
Jeez, how is it? So what are you talking about? So what's this? What's the situation that you were telling me about?
Jeremy and you, we were all discussing a TED talk that was given by Rupert Sheldrake, who is a philosopher and scientist from the UK.
This. I don't know if it's supposed to have
The title of the talk was "Does the Sun Have Consciousness?" or
Yeah.
"Is the Sun Conscious?" I think was the name of the talk.
Right.
But I just can't believe I can't remember my password.
I can.
I mean, I have several passwords, and there's nothing else that I have a password to that I can't get into right now. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes sometimes it's necessary to lock yourself out of yourself. You know,
I mean, probably.
it's a situation. You know.
So,
There could be a lot to be learned from that whole scenario. You know.
have you signed up for your Robinhood yet? Did I send you a link?
No.
Did
Yeah,
I
she sent me
you
the
a
link. I
Whoa.
haven't.
Robinhood works on the PCs, boys.
That's yeah.
Checking in on the
Are,
back.
are we still
channel.
live? Are we doing that still?
Yeah, we're still doing
I'm not,
it.
I don't know what's happening there.
So you're telling us about the TED Talk. I want to.
Sorry, this is a little informal, guys.
That's all right.
Yeah, we're working out
we're
some
still
glitches here.
following
We're
folks.
on a new
We're doing our
platform
own
here.
thing.
We've got some new stuff set up here.
We're
just
doing
kind
our
of
own
checking
thing.
it out, testing it. We got some
Testing out the
topics we want to
stream.
talk about, but we're not ready. Well, we are ready.
Well, they're not
Keep
ready.
sinking away.
I feel like we need to like segue into a segment of talking about something, but I feel like maybe we don't need to do that now.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about.
We had a topic to talk about,
Yeah.
but Justin's probably already talked about it enough where
I
he's like not excited about it anymore.
Not really.
No, let's just talk
'Cause we
about
didn't- we
it. So
didn't
I
even
want to
really get
know.
into the-
I want to know exactly what this is about. Tell me, what is this exactly? What is it again? What's it called?
Okay, so the talk was a TED talk that was given by Rupert Sheldrake.
Rupert Sheldrake, huh?
Rupert Sheldrake. He's a great philosopher from the UK and a scientist. I've seen other TED talks that he's given on science. One was really cool. He came out on stage in a tuxedo, barefooted, on a Persian rug. You know, just hanging out. He's a very cool guy. And so I was giving you guys a little background on one of his thesis that he's developing.
This is him right here.
This is Rupert Sheldrake, yeah, and he
Check it
speaks
out.
on all kinds of stuff, man. I mean, just broad-ranging topics. Great, just really cool guy.
Yeah, let's look at all and not images. He looks like a regular old dude.
Yeah, I mean, he's an old British guy.
What's he talking about now?
So his
Not so
main
close to the
thesis that his newest thesis that he's working on is it's called morphic resonance or morphic fields, and he suggests that all matter, any organic self-assembling and self-organizing system, right, produces and is maintained by and sustained partially through this field of energy, right? That it, while yes producing its own, it also is probably receiving as well, right? And if you find that, and I think this gets into, it has far-reaching implications from a scientific standpoint, because it could help explain why it is that when you remove any organism from its environment, you're done learning about that thing for the day. You know what I mean? You're gonna come up with some facts. You're gonna tell yourself about this thing that's on your table now, whatever it may be.
Yeah, you're not actually learning about it.
If you've removed it from its environment, then it's no longer what it was, right?
Right.
So, and that's kind of, so why is that? Why, you know?
Okay, so this morphogenic field.
So the
remember we
morphic-
used to talk about that if you take a Peachtree dish, there's that bacteria that's lactose intolerant, but if they just feed it just lactose, then it adapts itself to being able to
rather than
consume
dying,
lactose.
which
So
if
that's a
genes-
morphogenic field.
If
then
genes
that's happened there.
determined reality, if genes were what, basically, if genes were the only thing that is telling the organism what to do and how to do it,
Right, then it would always
it would die.
respond.
If you put it in pure
Well,
lactose
unless
environment, it would
the
die.
genes are
Well-
intelligent.
Well,
Is that what we're saying here? The genes are
no.
intelligent.
What I think is happening is the intelligence is within the DNA itself. Right, the DNA.
Well, so let's bring it back. Let's bring it back a little bit more. I think we're getting deep into it. I think we need to come back with it and reevaluate.
So okay.
What it is
So
this
the
thing,
suggestion
right?
is this morphic field is an aspect, if you will, of consciousness. It
Okay.
may even
State of mind, or
it may very well be consciousness itself. Okay,
we don't know.
we don't know.
Right.
But this thesis is pretty interesting because it really
Well, I
makes
would
a
say
lot
that
of
that
sense.
would be my vote. If
makes
if
a lot
if,
of sense.
if you asked me what my vote is on that, if I were to buy a lottery ticket with a scratch off and I could pick the winner inside, it would be that the morphogenic field, the idea of the intelligence behind DNA or genes, is the God factor.
Well,
And by the God factor, I
cool-
mean that is the life force of God
to
through
touch
all of us.
upon, like,
That's how it works, right?
touch upon the majority of the research that, and the cool thing about this thesis is he didn't really do a lot of the research that he based a lot of, and really I think developed his thesis by looking at the research done by the Heart Math Institute, which is a really cool place that is all about what's happening in the heart and the brain and how it's working, right? That's all they do is study heart and brain interaction. So it's called the Heart Math Institute.
Okay.
And they have done really extensive studies in consciousness, in really the body's auto response to what's happening, right? Like, there's always been this, there's this fascinating fact about baseball, right? Where if a pitcher throws a pitch at you at 100 miles an hour, 95 miles an hour, dude, that thing is coming at you faster than your eyes can perceive in a frame capture rate, right? You're seeing like 60 frames a second, dude. That thing is moving. And it's said that, statistically speaking, it should be impossible for baseball players to hit above like 150, dude. I mean, literally, because you can't see the ball that well. You can't see where the ball. You can see where it was when you let go of it, but by the time you're seeing where it is right before you hit it, it's already gone by you. You know what I mean? So they've never understood how it is that players can get to the point where they're hitting in the 500s, right? Because it's not just a muscle memory thing. Because, dude, good pitchers don't always throw anything. You know what I mean? So you got to be able to, right? There's a whole lot of information they know that's being processed in that event, but they don't know where it's happening, right? And they don't know how it's happening. So the morphic field thesis really lends itself to when some of the studies they've done at the Heart Math Institute.
Yeah.
they're looking for communication from the brain to the body, right? And this is based on, you know, the premise for the research is, okay, if the brain is the central processor, right, it's the main, it's what's telling the body what to do, right?
Right, exactly.
Then that should be the predominant flow of information should be from the brain to the body, right, and from the senses back to the brain, right? But it should be a predominantly, you know, distinct information pattern, right? And they don't really see that when they look at stimulus response studies.
Yeah, I'm doing
right?
something on the computer. I'm letting
They
Dr.
can be
listen.
doing a blindfolded subject with a whole, like 60 things stuck to his head, right? And they're giving him little stimulus, right? Completely random, and he's blindfolded, so he has no idea when it's going to happen.
And they think that's the morphogenic field too.
What they start to see, and this is
Oh,
fascinating.
I'm sorry, I didn't let you finish.
This is
I
fascinating.
didn't let you finish.
This is fascinating. So what they see is before the stimulus actually happens, just before it happens.
So before the video shows the contact,
But then
the
remember the technicians
there are
standing in the room
sensors
too,
that are
right?
showing a response from the body.
What they're seeing is information comes from the heart to the brain just before stimulus is actually made on the body. And when the actual contact is made, that's when the brain it sends a little bit of information back to the heart, a bunch more comes back from the heart, and then a bunch comes from the brain to the body, right? But in the majority of the dominant, I guess, information
Isn't that crazy?
flow,
Hold on. So you're
the
saying
dominant
so you're
energy
saying,
flow.
So you're saying that the body reacts in a reverse from the heart to the brain before
Prior to the stimulus.
Before there's actually the stimulus.
Correct.
So that means that the heart is seeing into the future.
I think what's happening is.
How do we increase that?
I think what's happening is,
Right.
check it out, okay?
Is that
Here's
the
the
key?
stimulus.
You know what I mean?
Here's the stimulus, okay? And whether the stimulus is a mechanical robot arm with a little needle on it or a person, right, holding it, doesn't matter, right? Because it's got its own morphic field. And I think as that stimulus gets to a interaction point
your
with
body
your
is
morphic
actually
field,
feeling the frequency of that.
you're feeling
getting
the
closer.
morphic resonance of that object
But we're not in
before it
tune
even
enough.
touches you.
We're not in tune enough.
No, we're not, because we're in a waking state. You're very dominated by what's happening right now. You know what I mean? So take it from a driving example, right? You see a car coming at you. It's cool. You know what I mean? What's primary though is what's the car doing right now? You know what I mean? I don't care. You know, because you're analyzing all that information and coming up with an idea of whether or not everything's cool. You know what I mean? And this car's coming at you at 60 miles an hour. You're coming at it. I mean, that's 120 mile an hour happening. You know, and it's probably happening quicker than you're seeing. You know what I mean? But because the brain, the way the brain is processing all the information, right? You're able to somehow come to this determination that, yep, I'm all cool right now, even though there's all the shit happening. You know, sitting in the middle of traffic, think about all the variables happening when you're sitting in a car in traffic, right? There's tons happening around you, right? But your brain's able to come up with this, yep, everything's cool, or nope, something needs to happen, right? And it happens so fast because all of this information is moving pretty much the speed of light. It's electrochemical. It's an electromagnetic frequency that's happening inside your body, traveling across your nervous system, right? So it's moving pretty much at the speed of light, right? That's
Right.
fast, man, really fast.
That's pretty crazy.
But I do think that study kind of suggests that something is happening out here before contact's actually made with the body. That is it's got to be some sort of a field, right? That's being detected, it's being disturbed, right? That your body senses, and the closer
like
you get to
some
someone's body, the
supernatural.
more sensitive that field is, right? Because the more your field's interacting with it, or anything for that matter, right? So.
And who's found this?
To
be true?
The research is coming out of the Heart Math Institute. I'm sure they're not one of the only places doing it. But Rupert used a lot of that research to help develop his thesis of morphic resonance. Right?
Okay.
And that.
So a lot of the data they've found supports his thesis about that.
Well, it's kind of what helped him come up with his thesis by analyzing that type of research and saying, okay, so what's really happening here? Why,
Like, looking
why,
behind the
why
scenes
is
of
the
what they
primary
have.
information pathway we're seeing and the majority of the data that's moving in the body is actually coming from the heart to the brain, right? And then from the brain back to the heart and the rest of the body.
Like,
but
so what's really
like,
going on?
you know,
behind the scenes,
and
like
that's
enough.
pretty interesting to think about, dude. Because
Yeah.
for the last, at least a couple hundred years, at least, well back before Descartes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the scientific medical community has had this conception that consciousness or the brain is the primary, the
Oh, that's
primary
new.
operating system,
That's
right?
new,
It's where
yeah.
consciousness is happening, and it's happening from the brain to the body. And this research kind of indicates the exact opposite, that consciousness is actually happening, information anyway is happening from the body to the brain, and then back from the brain to the body. But it also lends itself to the idea that is more of a signal that's being received and broadcast by the body, right?
Right.
When you focus your attention on something, you're actually radiating energy that way, right? Your consciousness is actually radiating out of your eyes towards that thing, right?
Wow.
So even there's a lot of subtle things happening there too, right? Which most people can feel when someone is watching them.
Right.
They can feel that. It's how subtle it is, and how in tune you are to that is, a different matter. But imagine being a little too in tune with it you wouldn't want to be too in tune with it, right? 'Cause it could be
That's
very
scary.
distracting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're driving down the highway, if you're doing 80 mile an hour in a car, you know what I'm saying? And
I could see that.
you don't necessarily want to, being distracted by all the subtle energies happening around you, but it's happening for sure.
Hey, Kyle. Can I use your iPhone charger? Do you have it plugged in over there?
Sure.
The TED Talk we were discussing though was
I'm not
that's a little
I'm not getting
background
a cover on
information.
my iPad right now.
That's a little background info on Rupert Sheldrake and his thesis of morphic fields. And this talk specifically was about, does the sun have consciousness or is the sun conscious? And it was actually pretty fascinating because
Let's see if
most
you can plug it into your hub
ancient
right there.
cultures, like pretty much all cultures,
Sorry, guys.
took it for granted that the sun is alive, right?
Does not show 'em any power source whatsoever. We got too many things plugged in there.
Have you tried hooking a USB up to your laptop?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry,
What
Justin.
power situation?
Told y'all we're still prototyping everything.
The idea, the view of the universe in reality, which is pretty much the mainstream, like it's how your average person interprets the world around them, right? Is this mechanistic idea which has been ingrained and indoctrinated since you were a little squirt, you know what I mean? You've been indoctrinated with, and this is the world of things, and this is what these things are, and it's a mechanistic interpretation, right? It's a mechanism that's happening. It's not an organism, right? It's a mechanism.
It is what it is.
And
Yeah.
he gets into the fundamental difference there is, because a lot of people say, well, how could the sun be conscious, right? It's just physical matter, right? It's not just, it's the difference between the sun and this table, for example, okay? This table is not a self-organizing system. This table had to be made this way by us, right? And if it's not maintained in a fairly decent manner, it will not be this way for long. It will return back to its original way, right? As all things that are created, fabricated, right, from this self-organizing system that is Earth, Gaia, right? He talks about the fact that Gaia itself is a self-organizing system, which it is. It has all the characteristics of an organism.
The planet itself is.
If you look up the word definition of organism, right, it can be said very clearly that the planet has all of these things, right? It responds to stimulus in its environment,
Yeah, it's got weather.
right? It has a biofeedback mechanism, right? It grows, it shits, it breathes, it dies, right? All self-organizing systems have a beginning and end, right? A stasis, a birth and a death, right?
Right.
And the difference between that and this table is this table may not imbibe or imbue or receive or have any type of consciousness whatsoever.
Hold on. perceivable consciousness by us.
Perceivable consciousness by us. Now, I'm so sure there's still subatomic stuff
I have to
happening
feel like
here.
I have to feel like
There's subatomic
Okay,
stuff
look,
happening here
I
that's
mean, look,
keeping this glass
right,
glass. You know
right,
what I mean?
all of these,
So, yeah.
um,
It's
all the way down to the quark level, and we're smaller than that now,
Absolutely.
right? All of those know exactly how to
Well,
stay
and he
bonded to
touched-
each other
right.
in order to
yes.
make this
Yes.
seemingly permanent, as to where like water
Yeah.
knows to not bond so tightly that it's always fluid, right? But
Well,
it
in
will
certain
bond
states.
together, but it doesn't bond and harden at our regular operating
water
temperatures.
can be said to behave as an organism because it responds to its environment.
Sure it does. Sure it does.
Okay, if you get it too cold,
It'll
it's
soak
gonna
up
change state.
contaminants,
It's
and
gonna
it will
change
release them.
state.
It's almost like the water will eat. If you take distilled water, it will pretty much absorb anything near it. It doesn't even have to be in it,
That's right.
right? Because it's so pure. Like it's so ready to just dilute something,
Receive information
Right.
from around it.
and it's very easy to distill it again, right? So
Which means
or
that
it'll
whatever it
freeze,
acquires,
or it'll
it gives up easily too.
right in a hot environment, it doesn't die. It changes forms into a gas, and it'll stay that gas until such conditions where it is liquid again, and it's functional in that way and living in that way.
It's kind of similar to like
And so I go back
stasis
to
of
the
caterpillars,
idea
you
of
know,
this
they change
glass,
states and-
because you said it may not have any consciousness.
well, I'm
but
saying conscious
it doesn't
thought or
appear
you know,
to have consciousness.
and this is definitely that's,
Because it doesn't like make its own decision to move,
Right.
and things like
Right.
that.
Right.
But doesn't it?
well.
Hit it real hard, it'll make a
It's
decision to come
making
apart.
the decision to stay glass.
If you hit it to a stress point, it'll make the decision to come apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Into a bunch of little pieces.
he does recognize and touch upon the fact that the atom is a self-organizing.
And I know that
thing.
sounds kind of strange to call it making a decision to come apart, because we hit it, but like it's just like us. I mean, we make a decision to get out of the way when there's a car coming. You know what I mean? Right? And we may just want to stay right there when there's not. You know what I mean? So it wants to stay right here and being as pretty as it is, unless a hammer's coming down, and then it's like, well, I'm not going to stick around and keep getting beat up.
Yeah, I mean, you can really get to the thing about consciousness is it's.
But that's happening at
fathomless in its
happening at the
depths
level
as
of
far
the
as
consciousness
what
of
level
each
you
of
wanna
our
get
cells
to
inside
it.
of our body, because like our kidney cells know to be
Kidney
cells, and that's happening
Well,
at a way subconscious level.
Well, they can.
That's
they,
part
they
of the-
attempt to explain some of that with DNA.
Right.
It's
Right,
in
but
the DNA
hold
and
on,
how
but,
the DNA is read.
but,
It
but now
tells
we've gotten to a
the
point where like we've
primary
grown
cell.
to where our appendix is very small and not even used, right? That's got to be part of the morphogenetic field, and that in and of itself explains a lot of what I see as
Well, the morphogenic
Well-
field, he expands on the idea, right? And so if you look at self-assembling systems, everything is a micro, macro, as above, so below, right? It's a hermetic principle that is very valid here because and this is one of the cool thing about the
that's how the evolution works, right? of life,
hermeticism
right, also.
is pretty ancient stuff, and it's
Maybe we could
really
get some drinks.
I figured out how to reset the PC, by the way, guys. So I'm just doing a full reset on
I
it.
think it's the third.
By the way, if anybody out there is on Windows 10, you hold Shift when you restart, and that'll let you
it's gonna let you
the computer.
restart and starting.
I'm trying to figure that out for a minute. Trying to figure it out.
The hermetic, one of the hermetic, there's like 7 hermetic principles, and one of them is as above, so below, which is reinterpreted again in the Bible, right? It can be found in the Bible, but it's also found in hermetic writings.
Right.
So the idea is that the
Hold on,
self.
did you say if it can be found in the Bible, then it's also
No.
in Hermetic writings?
No, it
Oh,
is
okay.
also in hermetical writings, which
Right.
some say.
And I would say you're probably right, because
say
most of the
predate the
Bible
Bible,
is just
and,
a
you know,
regurgitation
Well,
of somebody
Hermes,
else's story
supposedly
before.
Hermes Trismegistus was Thoth.
Right.
Same guy. Right? Thoth, the god of wisdom of Egypt, right? The guy with the bird head, right? He's the supreme priest. He's the consciousness guy. He
Right.
taught everybody everything.
Right.
Everything. Numbers, words, right? So Thoth supposedly has been around for a long time. He's had 3 passes around, and his last pass was Hermes Trismegistus, which is the Greek word for they believe to be the same guy, right? And that's pretty fascinating stuff. But so, oh, sorry. So it's, but you know, flowing with that, with this idea of consciousness, right? It is this self-replicating or self-organizing principle of an organism, right? And consciousness is the means by which that is happening, right? Consciousness allows self-organizing systems to be, right? Otherwise, there would be no way for it to self-organize, right? But like, no one has to tell the solar system how to be the solar system right now.
It's like
the
it's
solar
got
system
its
is
set of
being the solar system
instructions
right
deep
now
down.
because it is a self-aware.
So what are you
organism.
saying? What are you saying? Are you saying that?
I'm saying that consciousness. Okay, this is fascinating because you can follow this philosophy through the ancient writings of pretty much all ancient cultures. Some of the best and purest, in my opinion, is some of the Vedantic writings of India. And it basically, consciousness is supreme. Okay, consciousness is the primary force, element, substance of the universe. Okay, we are part of that scientific indoctrination I was speaking about earlier in regards to what we think about how consciousness is happening in the body. This is just how medicine looks at, oh, well, it's something that's happening in the brain, right? But after a couple hundred years of digging around in the brain for it, dude, I mean, they have sliced it and diced it every way you possibly could. And I'm kind of in the camp that if they haven't found it there yet, it's not happening there. It explains why some near-death experiences from people, they talk about the things happening in the operating room that it is absolutely impossible that they could have been aware of had they not had a perspective of it from outside of their body, which is like, how is that even possible, dude? Now, it may be explainable by saying, oh, well, it was a view from some other person there. No, because it's a perspective that sees everyone there. Almost like it's a perspective above. It's looking down on the room, right? So they can see things happening on the far. It ain't got shit to do with the body. I mean, it does have a lot to do with the body, but it's not happening because of the body. It's not
like the body is just a TV.
The body is a extremely sophisticated broadcast receiving antenna. Okay, and what I recently, in talks with my dad and the nature of what he's getting into, right? Everything pretty much operates on this it's like a radio antenna. Your body literally is like a radio antenna, right? And you have an electromagnetic frequency that's traveling through your body in your spinal cord, your nervous system, right? And if you think about, have you ever seen a diagram of a radio antenna in a book?
Yeah.
You know what it looks like?
Not off the top, but I've seen
Essentially, it looks like a figure eight, right? You got the antenna. Can you see me? I'm paused over here. I can't. It's like I'm.
Oh.
I don't know what's going on with it. So if this is the antenna, right, the broadcasting antenna, you have if it's a broadcast and receiving antenna, which most of them are,
right.
You have a big circle up here, and you have another one down here, right? And where it's broadcasting at, the center of that circle, of the figure eight, right? The center of it is typically at the highest point on the antenna, okay? So that its broadcasting range is as broad as possible, and its receiving range is also as broad as possible, right? And that's basically what's happening in your body too, right? On an energy standpoint. Some people call it the luminous body, right? It's your energy body. It's your electromagnetic, and the morphic field is a component of that, right? It's the morphic field is that luminous body projecting beyond the physical body, right? And what we would describe that we're able to detect, right, with instrumentation would be this morphic field.
Yeah.
You're not actually detecting the
No,
luminous
that's
body.
not it.
Right? You're
Yeah,
not detecting the
it's-
luminous body because really you can't. Right? It's a light body, right? And your eyes can't see light. Think about that.
So we don't. Yeah.
Think about that, dude. Think about the fact that light is not a visible
see it.
spectrum to you.
Yeah, we can't.
You can
see
only
it.
see something that light's bouncing off of, bro. Right? So you
I've
can
thought
only,
about that before.
it's a pretty bizarre thing, dude. Like light itself, you cannot see.
Imagine that
You know what I mean?
reality.
It's
that
pretty
perspective of
amazing,
reality.
dude, that something we can't see is allowing us to see.
Oh wow, my Dogecoin just sold. That
That's
means,
pretty strange.
Yeah, that is pretty
So,
strange.
Anyway, there's a huge rabbit hole there. But
I'm actually.
to get back to like consciousness and the idea that the sun is alive, right? From a contemporary, modern, scientific standpoint, you talk to the average person, they're gonna be like, yeah, you know, it's understandable that primitive cultures or old, you know, way back when it was okay to think the sun was alive, sure, whatever, you know, but we all know better now, right? We all know it's just a star burning out there. It's just a hydrogen bomb happening, right? In real time, forever. Well, not forever, but it's, you know, it's like this constant nuclear bomb happening. That's our interpretation of it. And it's a very mechanistically rooted interpretation of the sun, right? And it's pretty commonplace in ancient traditions and pretty much all traditional cultures that the sun is definitely alive, right?
Yeah, it is.
There's usually practices and meditations or prayers or that are devoted to the sun. There's an Indian yoga and meditative. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Rupert actually uses this personally in his yoga. That's basically like a greetings to the sun or a salutations to the sun, essentially. Right? So it's like something you do with your morning yoga, right? Your morning whatever, dude. You just salute the sun, say, hey, what's up? Morning. You know what I mean? Which is like, that's bizarre to most people, dude. And what's really interesting is Eric and I last year, when we were working, we just like one day, I don't know what it was, dude. I decided I was going to call the sun Carl. And just started talking to the sun. Because at the time, I didn't know any Carls, and I never had known a Carl. And Carl to me was just one of these weird, kind of cool names. And I'm like, okay, so if I were to start talking to the sun, I'm going to call him. I got to give him a name. I can't just call him, say, son, what's up, son?
This was before we worked with Carl too, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Dude.
it sure was.
And you know, I don't know why I did. Just one morning, what's up, Carl? You know what I mean? And Eric's like, who, what? What's going on? I'm like, he's tagging his son. He's like, oh yeah, the son's Carl? I'm like, yeah, why not? Do you have any problems with the name Carl? He's like, well, no, I mean, well, why not? It's a name, right? I'm like, sure. Well, you kind of have to give it a name to be able to talk to it.
Right.
Right? The mind needs that, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, son is way too like, I have a son, I am a son, there is a son, and it's pregnant of all these concepts of what those are supposed to be. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, to give it a personal name was kind of cool, dude. And it was funny. We cracked ourselves up with it. But like after like a while of doing it, it was just like, what's up, Carl? And I found that it caused me to interact with it more on a personal level. Just the fact that I had given it a name, I talked to it more. You know what I mean? And like,
Were you
that-
tripping that morning?
that can't be a bad thing. You know what I mean? That cannot be a bad thing. I'm sorry, bro, but the sun is one of the primary things
That's
that
not
helps
a
it all
bad
stay here,
thing.
dude. You know what I mean? It's not surprising that whatever you want to call it, sun worship was a pretty common thing. You know, and I think a deep reverence for it should still be a common thing. I think it's kind of unfortunate that your average, every ordinary guy.
It's not.
It's
Everybody's
like,
not as
whatever,
into
dude.
it. No.
It's just a big fireball up there and
I
keep
think,
us all alive.
yeah,
you know?
I think it's nowadays you get a lot of people who aren't really interested and try to figure out what's going on behind the scenes because they don't have any time for it. What you end up getting is a lot of people who
I
are.
want to be entertained.
What you get is a lot of people who are this. All right, you get people who are okay, they're doing well in life, they're middle class or whatever, they end up figuring out how to make time in their life to do extra things like spend time with their families,
Which is hard to do.
have personal time to reflect and have these thoughts. And it's really only when you're able to have the time to sit down with yourself and have these thoughts, and when you start to like actually figure things out.
Yeah, I was
Right.
listening to this shit.
And so what's going on is people are so busy because they're going to school, they're going to work,
Sure.
Just off the
they're
They have a lot of things they're focusing on.
tired.
Yeah, they have a lot of things they're focusing on.
Everybody's busy, and that's the society. And if you're not busy, you're lazy.
But here's the cool thing. Here's some of the cool things, and let's take some of the attributes of modern society that most people, it's looked at as a negative thing. Traffic sucks. Takes forever to get anywhere, right? Always takes you longer than you want it to.
Right,
okay?
exactly.
So,
You want to get there
but what a
quick.
great opportunity that the system just built this built-in biofeed. It's part of the human system, right? This feedback mechanism, right, creates this opportunity for you to put on a podcast or whatever and listen to something that's pretty deep, that if you didn't have the time to sit down and actually think about it, you wouldn't, right? Because you're too busy,
Are you going somewhere?
you know, picking the kids
Oh,
up
this
from
guy.
soccer practice or going to work. You know what I
Yes.
mean? When you're
You
at
wanna say
work,
hi?
you can't be, you know. So, yeah, it's. But I think that's one thing that's really cool about traffic, right? Is, hey man, it gives you an opportunity to think about
say hi to
and learn
Patrick's
about some
friend,
shit that
Emma,
you
right?
probably wouldn't
It's
have
Emma,
time
right?
for otherwise.
Okay.
Oh, what's up down there? I didn't realize we had.
Oh snap! What's going on?
I'm gonna try not to bomb you guys with these things. The last time I came here, these came down like half those down. I don't know. Just a problem that's happening. I didn't say that to concern you at all.
Why is it still showing? Oh,
Oh, it's just the way that thing.
it's not showing me on
It's
there.
not the way it really is. It's not how you really are.
It's not.
Okay.
There it is.
Well, there's.
Hey, Doge is a .00209
What?
for you in there who knows.
Oh, Jeremy's not listening.
Are we making millions?
It's a 2092.
It's rocking, dude.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Mine's sold.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's.
Guys are
I'm
buying
only
and
down
selling.
16.16. It's 2094 now, so it's on an uphill climb. 2097.
Still a lot higher than that.
Working it.
I got it to sell a little bit of mine just in case it went down, so I'm okay with it.
33% on the reset on the PC.
33%. That's not bad.
Oh, what is it doing? So it's just resetting.
Yeah, I'm just factory resetting it.
I'm confused how you needed a USB to do that.
Oh, the USB was for if I would have created a password recovery drive before I lost my password. That didn't do anything.
So, speaking about the stock market, there was
Oh,
some,
yeah.
there was some pretty fascinating research.
So let's talk about the stock market.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. He
Cur-
just was in the middle of his
Well, the transition. I love consciousness is a great thing to start off with because it touches everything. There's
Wow.
some great studies done in the
It's-
80s,
going on?
mid 80s,
Uh-huh.
and they analyzed the stock market like you would look at a heartbeat, right? Like an organism, and look for a beat, and look
Yeah.
for stuff
Definitely
like that.
does. Look at it.
And it has.
Go back to that last screen.
It has
Cal?
a
The,
lot of
the daily screen you were just looking at?
has a lot of similarities to
Or are you trying to buy or sell?
self-organizing
I'm
system.
trying to show you what the price is for
Oh,
Doge.
yeah. You sold all yours?
No,
Okay.
it's
And
2107 right now for Doge.
It's interesting to think about. It's all systems within systems, right? So take the stock market, right? Business, trading, right? It's a system within the system, and it's its own self-organizing system, right? That is absolutely conscious of itself in a real-time situation because it is comprised of self-aware systems that are making it do its thing. You know what I mean? So it's like there's always going to be this feedback mechanism that's happening, right, in real time. And I think that's really where people start to gain a deeper understanding of trading and market analysis. Why certain sectors of certain
What's that?
industries do well during
Yeah, come on.
certain trends and stuff.
You want to read one of your poems for us?
Are you
What?
poeming, dude?
I don't know.
Why? Because you're scared to speak in public?
Are you a poet? Didn't know it? What's going
You
on?
have such a pretty voice, though, Patrick.
Don't have the first
He's got a very soothing.
Aw.
I was just showing you some of them.
We need to get a camera set up right here on the speaker just to and
Oh, it's
shoot.
fine.
Dude, that could be a cool podcast idea. Poems with Patrick.
Poems of Patrick.
I mean, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Dude, we're gonna get you set up here in the
just
studio on
we could
Wednesday
just do a
nights.
nightly. We could do a weekly segment.
We get you set up on
Poems with
Wednesday.
Patrick.
I have one every week.
Hey, it's set up
Working.
at 21.2 right now. Doge is going up. It's .00212. It's going
What
up
is? What are you doing?
to the. It's .2114 now.
211121.
This is like a self-exploration thing, so they're all
What's going on?
like my core value, or some of them aren't. Like one was driving down the road, and I was like, oh,
Palm tree.
poem tree.
Poem tree.
Well, that's my list.
It's
Okay,
like
that's
carpentry.
your list of ideas.
It's like
No, but this
carpentering.
was- I hadn't made a core
No, you have to
value.
come this way and pay the troll
I
toll.
hadn't,
Yeah, total.
Are
I hadn't
you
come
like
up with
palm
that
tree?
list
Are
yet.
you leaving?
You're so beautiful.
Are you going
So-
away?
Bye, Jules.
Running to the grocery
I just
store.
made that list last night.
Are you
so
gonna be
that
right
was-
back?
That was the
Yep.
whole point of this,
Okay.
was digging into my
Have fun. Be safe.
Do you need anything? Anybody?
core value.
Well, I need a.
Um,
Oh
you
Jesus!
wanna get, like,
Did I
maybe-
kill you?
No, you were just
I'm
on my
getting
top.
Oh,
This
thank
one-
God.
This one's
Man,
I'm
man,
a scooch. You know what I mean?
her toes are
She
key. You
stepped
take one of
as I
those, you're gonna owe some money.
I was, oh my God,
This
dude.
one's kinda like what
My
I'm
morphic field just
digging
like.
into my
Your morphing field.
Oh,
Okay.
Look, this shows my toe.
Can you
color.
dig it?
Yeah,
When we
they have
wake up,
weird
it's painted.
titles on purpose.
Yeah,
like,
she
I want to read that one. I would
Really,
read
the
that one.
walrus.
I like it.
Yeah.
looks
Yeah,
good.
they're all good.
The walrus.
They're all just thought.
Oh wow, it's
Cool, cool,
21.28.
Maryland the walrus. It's half
We're
inspired
going
from
up to
Maryland
the sky.
quote and half
If
inspired
anybody
from
needs anything,
that
just
song.
text me, call me.
The Beatles.
Some drinks.
Yeah.
I am the walrus.
Do I need something? Just
Thank
keep
you.
while you're gone.
I need some more. Just bring back more.
More?
If you can get more and put it in a box with some more.
Just some more of it.
Turn
I
it
like
up
the
to
more
11.
thing. Cause that way
Turn it
I
up
can
to
apply
11.
Hey, are you
that
looking at
more
the screen
to
now?
whatever I
Are you
need
looking at-
more of. You know what I
Hey, do
mean?
you want to look at the
It's like,
screen?
wait a minute, I got more right here. Bammo, right? And there it is, you know.
It's hey,
That is a cool idea, dude.
it's up big time. It's up 4.32% in the past hour.
Wouldn't that be like?
Can
Can you imagine
I'm gonna
having a
read
more
this
box?
since
You
Patrick's.
gonna read it?
Oh, we were doing
Yeah.
it. Let's do it, guy.
This is a Patrick Greenway poem. He's over here. You can't see him. No,
Poetry.
we're not gonna move the camera this time.
No,
We've
no,
got it
it's
in the
fine.
perfect spot.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I should make Justin
do you
leave
wanna
and let
switch?
you
You
come
wanna
in as a
sit?
guest.
No, I have shit to do. I was just showing you. Asked. I haven't shown you since I started.
You can at
Let
least come
Patrick
say
come
hi.
in.
Come say hi.
Come on in,
Come
Patrick.
say hey. I'll step aside.
What up,
And
Mr.
actually,
Greenway?
let's,
How you doing today? Welcome
Let's
to
turn these
the
chairs a little better. for
Tales
the-
from the Trip.
That
How
way
you
you're not
doing?
turning your head to look at each other.
Tales from the Trip. Patrick Greenway.
Where am I?
Nice to
Look,
have you
Where's the
on.
camera?
Look,
Oh,
see, he sat up straight.
Yeah.
He's up in the picture.
Right.
Justin was down.
Okay, you ready for your test?
Look, we were like this.
Well, listen, man. We were deep into it, though. You know what I mean? And that's what when you get deep, it's like
Yeah.
Can you scoot in this way maybe a little bit more?
Talk about digging deep.
We're digging deep into
Like-
the thing.
So Patrick was just telling me he's on a little self-discovery exploration
Yeah.
thing. And
Okay.
part of that, he's doing
what's
a
going on.
poem a week.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Hey,
I'll
man,
share with a friend. It's a
if you get
And
project.
he showed me.
doing that in certain
I've got his
places,
phone.
they'll throw you
So
in
if y'all
jail.
want to get on his
Just saying.
Facebook and stuff, we'll get on there in a
Assault,
minute.
everything. If you get caught doing that in certain places, they'll throw you in jail.
That's right.
So-
They will.
So yeah, you can't do that in a public theater after you heard
Self discovering the diagnostics.
So he showed me a list of some different topics that he's writing poems on, and
Yeah. This one's.
I like
This
this
is
one
one of
actually.
them,
I
yeah.
just reread this one. I haven't
This
read a
kind of
bunch of them.
explains what I'm doing. This poem here, actually.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, right. Self-exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not gonna read it himself. He's nervous to speak in public. But if you notice,
Well, no,
look at that
it's-
smile. He's ready
Yeah,
to
I'm
look at
not
the
nervous.
camera. He's just eating it up. And
I
it
haven't
holds
really-
up.
It's
I've
natural.
written them, but
That's
I've
a
never really
strange thing.
said them out loud. Like
It's
I
actually
don't-
pretty
I don't
good.
know how they flow. I
It's
just
actually
write
pretty
what's
good.
in my head. So I don't know how to say.
A little dark.
Yeah,
When I
yeah,
read it,
they-
I felt like maybe don't beat yourself up so much.
No,
I mean,
they are dark.
if that's your
some of
motivator,
them.
but like,
Hey, man.
don't hate yourself. I like you. You're a good person.
Yeah, I
This
don't
is
hate
a
myself.
songwriter.
Good
No,
friend
this
to
one-
have.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just busting him up a
Yeah,
little
that
bit.
one is
It's not that great.
little
Parks in the
dark.
parking spot all the time.
all the time.
I started to fuck
Alright,
with
look
him
here,
about it
don't
tonight, and
gamble
then
up
I
the
realized he had a
meter,
friend.
guy.
I'm like, oh, fuck, not dick time.
Yeah, right. What's on
Go ahead,
YouTube now?
Don't lose the don't.
See how we're live.
Don't lose
Wasn't
the
it
run,
on like
don't
a
lose
different?
Yeah, we were on something else, but now we're going live on this.
That's cool. YouTube.
I think we're the only ones watching right now, but it'll be on there so we can share it and look at
I like
it later.
It. Yeah,
A little bit higher resolution than the other one was letting us get.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So anyway,
YouTube's got their shit together.
man, I feel like this one should be at like one of those poetry slams. You know what I mean?
It
Like,
might be. That was
Right.
pretty rough.
Slam poetry.
dig into yourself. The way you breathe, the way you bleed. Go deep. Find that creep, that asshole. Dig deep. The way you think, shit. The way you wink. You must dig. You fucking pig. Worm. Germ. Will you ever learn? These are the why we go deep. To remove all the dirt and grime. This is why we dig, so we may sleep. Dig, dig, dig. We must not weep. Just give it time. Never alone. You are home. Together we dig.
You read the
Nice.
shit out of that.
I mean, that's just
That
how
was
it
good.
made
Yeah,
me feel
no,
when I
I
was
think
reading
that
it.
was fine.
You know what I mean?
Snap.
Yeah, it did.
I like
Very
that.
nice,
That was neat.
open rhyme.
You did a good job.
I like the way the
Fantastic.
rhyme was kind of an open.
I didn't write it. I just read it.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I read it the way it was
That's
written.
really cool.
So some of them are like that, and like the one I just did,
dude, that actually reads more.
How long
like
you been
song
doing this?
lyrics.
that was pretty
How long you been
It
doing
reads
this?
A lot like
12
song
weeks.
lyrics, dude.
12 weeks now?
Yeah.
How many poems do you have?
Yeah.
12.
I read very.
I do
well.
one a week.
Dude, I'd love to freaking do a song with that.
I have some that are more lyrically.
Have you thought about getting
Yeah,
up
he
in the
is,
studio?
he's always looking for lyrics to
This is
put
But
in
look,
music.
dude, the thing with
Where is it?
poetry is
We're about to make something happen here.
a lot of times
I'm
poetry.
looking for 10%.
That's right.
Here's the trap of stylistic
Is it Black Rose? Where's that one?
interpretation of poetry, bro. Is once you've established a meter in a rhyme,
Right.
you've locked it into a box, bro. So it's an idea of how big is the idea, right? Because if it's a pretty big idea, you're gonna want a big fucking box, man. You know what I mean? In fact, I'd like a box that's not like a box at all. You know what I
You
mean?
don't have that on the screen for
So,
viewers. Okay.
like for me, musically speaking,
Look at that,
it's
though.
the hardest type of writing to do.
So, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Is to
Weekly.
like free flow lyrics on top of a melody, right? Because when you're writing a song, dude, it's like almost like, well, that's if you.
They're
you
poems
need
they
you
build
you
into a
need it, it's
structure
like
for a
everything
song.
needs to be in the structure and
Yeah.
on meter and in the rhyme. But dude, some of the greatest songs of history are guys that were able to write it in such a way where it's just fucking, it's just there.
Well, shit.
And it's on
The
top of
Nightmare
the
Before
melody
Christmas
and the
was a
beat in
poem.
whatever way it needs to be. It's very organic and freestyle, and
This
that,
was
in
cool.
my opinion,
Thank you
is
for
some of the
reading that.
hardest writing to do.
Yeah, the way it was written.
Like,
Well,
how
man,
do
I mean,
How do you do
thanks
that?
for sharing.
Yeah, that was
It's really
good.
I liked it.
like that.
I
We're-
dig, bro.
We're gonna do that
I
every
dig,
week.
man.
We're
That's
gonna read
good.
one of
I dig,
Patrick's
yeah,
I've got
poems.
plenty.
Yeah, that was
If he's
dope.
not here, we'll get him to text it in.
Yeah, I can
But
send
if
them
he's
out.
here, we'll have him on.
I
Maybe
can
one
read-
day we'll actually get him to read
Yeah,
one.
yeah, that might be a thing.
I'm
Right.
digging the dig, dude.
Yeah. Thank you. That was fun.
Thank you, Mr. Greenaway.
Yeah, yeah. Send me a link to this. I like this.
Tales from the Trip. You just search it
Yeah,
up on
soon I'll have
YouTube.
my
Yeah.
computer up,
Sweet.
and this is not charging, so I'll
working,
have
right?
this up, and then we'll be able to like search stuff up. We're seeing what Kyle's seeing on his screen here.
Yeah.
So if he searches stuff up, we can see what he's like. If we're sitting back
Yeah.
talking, he can be searching up the topic,
can show you
and we
what's
can be
going
like,
on.
"Oh, click on that,"
Yeah.
you know.
Now we're getting a validation of
cool.
reconfirmation of confirmation.
Wow, I'm only down 8
You could
or
probably
7
do a mouse
cents
hooked
now.
up
This
to
is
his, too, a
looking
second
good
mouse
on
hooked up to
Doge.
yourself.
Oh, maybe, huh? If I
Hey,
go
well,
stick
he's
my
got a
go stick
pad.
my thing in and just use
Yeah.
this, and I
Right.
can use this over here.
Pat, would you,
I've actually got another
would you
mouse.
mind texting me that or email?
No, yeah, it's
Would you be cool?
it's open to anyone.
I would,
What's
I'd
that?
just love to have it on my
Would
phone
like
so I
the
can fuck
poem.
around.
Oh, is it on your
I've always
Evernote?
got melodies floating around
Yeah.
that I'm, you know.
Share it with me.
No, it's on.
Oh, don't. You
It's on
probably want
Samsung
to.
Notes, but I
Probably want to be able
I,
to keep some.
I
present.
share them. No, I write them, and a couple people I'll share them with, and I want feedback.
I'm gonna have to.
Okay.
go with shamanic
Yeah,
experience with my guitar and
definitely.
phone.
That'd be cool to get you on here with one of those again.
Yeah, I can do that.
Like I said, it's Tales from the Trip. Everybody that's just not coming in, welcome. Nice to have you guys.
Thanks for
Uh,
joining us.
We're gonna have Mr.
Yeah, man.
Gundle, Justin
Always a
coming
pleasure.
back on into the scene.
Send one to Jeremy.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no, I've been sharing them with you. They're not secret or hidden.
So let's talk about this cryptocurrency stock trading.
Living life.
We're
All
gonna
right, yeah, you were showing me some numbers are up. I'm gonna
So, I
log
wanted
into
to-
my Robinhood account.
I wanted to talk about it.
take it.
All right, see you,
Can
Greenway.
we can we link a link to refer Robinhood to me on our?
Oh, I'm sure.
A link.
I'm sure you could. Let me see.
Is that a thing?
Do you want?
Thank you for being patient. That was a pretty cool poem, man. Did you read
That
it
was
all
awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Do you want to come be on the show too? Do you have some poems?
You guys
What do you do? What's
Do you
your
want to make
talent?
yourself known? Come say hey.
Yeah.
Come say what's going on.
Naked poetry hour. I get the feeling
That's when
going on.
That's when you get to reveal your
I
talent.
think
so
that's
we
what was
won't be part of
happening
that.
there, Mr. Dig. That's what was going on. That's cool, man. Some of my, I think some of the greatest impetus for songwriting ever
I have one that is
was
more.
definitely.
Yeah.
I have one that is more lyrically written. Written like that.
You see, most of my song lyrics read more like poetry rather than lyrics. I try to avoid the whole chorus.
Well, sometimes
Just
it's
do
hard to
it.
find them in like rhyming. Like that one, I remember now that you read it out loud. I remember writing it in that setup. And then some are like haikus.
Yeah.
They all rhyme. And then that last one I just wrote was just kind of ugh.
Dude,
Yeah,
my
that's
shit.
super cool, dude.
Dig it.
That
Dude.
one was
Super
cooler
cool.
because you did it more artistically.
dude,
Yeah.
it's going up.
Just
I'm
threw it
actually
out
down to where I haven't even. I'm less than a penny
Okay,
lost.
I
right
was
now.
this morning. I was down
Less
a
than a penny,
dollar.
boss.
Less than a penny lost on my cryptocurrency.
Now I'm only down 5 cents.
It took a huge dip right after I bought it.
I'm only down 5 cents on the P5, so I needed to go up. Because my average cost on it's $21.87, so we're almost there. Once it gets to $21.87, and it keeps going past that, I'm gaining.
Thank you, Patrick. So, here's an interesting thing to think about. In regards to you, like, you know, pick up your phone and you look to see what's happening with the stocks you just bought. Right? And so, think about it. We just discussed how that thing is basically a living self-organizing system, right? That,
Yeah.
Okay, so, and here you are, a living self-organizing system, living right along with it, and you're picking up this thing, right, as a go-between between you and that system, right? And think about it, you and that system are part of the bigger system that is Gaia, right? That is part of the bigger system that's the solar system, right? So, like, don't tell me there ain't a way where I don't need this thing to know whatever it is I want to know
Right.
about anything that's happening within the field that my field is in, right? So my field is in Gaia, right? So is the stock market is in Gaia, right? Because it's happening on Gaia, right? And my field is a part of the Gaia field, right? So, and this touches back to what an Egyptian phrase for this field that I'm talking about is the Akashic record, dude. Right, the Akashic record is basically everything that is happening in consciousness right now, and everything that ever will and everything that ever did is in the Akashic record, right? Because think about it, from a conservation of energy perspective, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It just transforms itself, right?
I don't believe in that.
I thoroughly believe in it. I think it's pretty well tested.
But the whole thing is like,
You can't destroy
Earth
something.
hasn't always been here, right? Not forever. So
Supposedly.
this energy at some point was
Um,
created.
It's a theory.
All of the energy in
It's
the
a
whole
theory.
in this whole
The,
atmosphere.
dude, the Big Bang is one of the biggest
Or do you think this
theories
is just
there
a
is.
collection of
Think about
energy
it.
that was already
Think about,
outside
okay,
of it?
so here's the scientific interpretation of that point. That
Okay,
you just
how
made.
about this? How
No,
about
this is where this
the
is this
energy
is
hadn't
really
yet
cool.
been manifested.
This is really cool, dude.
Right.
Science says, give me one big miracle, and I'll explain everything.
Right. Right.
And
The
one
Big
big
Bang.
miracle is the Big Bang,
Right.
Which is totally unfounded.
Right.
Absolutely
Right.
nothing to base it on.
No matter what your faith, it's
Nothing to
always
base it on.
faith.
Okay. All we know is that everything that is kind of breathing.
You can either believe in science
Everything that is
or you
has
can
a
believe
breath,
in some sort of
has a
religion,
rhythm,
but it's still all
has a
just faith.
movement, has a something, right? It breathes, right? So, yep, the universe is breathing, and we probably interpret that one breath as
Oh
it's
yeah,
the in breath or the out breath or whatever breath it is, right?
Right.
Because dude, we're such
Different
a little
time
speck
scale,
in
right?
time, right?
Different
as far
time
as
scale.
human life, but
it's like
getting back to
it's
the-
like the lifespan of the
here's the
cells
thing,
inside our
but here's the
body.
thing.
You know what
Okay,
I mean? What?
so-
Each cell
so-
lives for a couple days.
So
You know
let
what I
me
mean?
get back to the Hermetic principle in association with consciousness. Okay, if as above, so below. Let's just presume. Run with me on a presumption.
Mhm.
Let's say that consciousness is the primary substance of the universe. Okay? Even though all of our science says, oh, it's full of all these atoms and, you know, right, the atomic structure, it's right, it's all atoms interacting with each other. It's very mechanical, right? It's a very, you know, it's a very straightforward thing, right? But let's just presume for a second that consciousness is the primary substance, of which atoms are a manifestation, right? Because the more we've looked at it, the less of it is to see, right? It's not. There's actually nothing there. It's 99.99% nothing. And in my book, buddy, that's pretty much nothing. You know, right? The something you think you're seeing is you seeing it. You know what I mean? That's the something. Right?
Right.
That's really what it all boils down to. And tell me the last time you were able to find that, right? You can't. There is no that, right? The that is an aspect of the primary consciousness, right? So walking on that presumption, there is nothing that could happen in reality that is not part of your consciousness. And consciousness, as you perceive it right now, as Jeremy and me as Justin, is a superimposition of a whole bunch of filters on the camera. Right? If you look at the brain as like a filtering mechanism rather than an operating system, right? And it's got all these super, super hyper complex filters, dude. And you understand from a photography or an audio standpoint, when you get a bunch of filters going on, man, you can get, I mean, there's infinitudes of different variations of filters you can possibly have, right? At any given reference, you know what I mean? So think about that, okay? So the idea of you here and now in this lifetime is just a experience being produced by the filters in place in your brain.
You know what I think?
Right? In your brain, dude. Your brain is giving you that perspective of consciousness.
So you know how there's
right?
in the brain, DMT is naturally created.
Yes,
I believe
it's
that
androgynous.
our neutral state of reality and consciousness is based off of this small amount of DMT that our body produces, and this is what causes us to experience our
it's what
neutral
gives
reality.
it's what gives reality the realness.
The fabric.
It feels
what,
real.
Yeah, what
It's
makes
what
it real.
makes nothing seem like something, right? Is yes, absolutely a factor of DMT. It's also your nervous system is specifically
It's
designed
a collection,
to
it's a
gather
conjunction
data
of
in such a
all of
way
these
to produce
inputs for sensories.
this
Yeah.
solid reality, right?
No.
But like your eyes are just seeing a certain frequency. Your body is
Well, I'm
just
seeing a
this,
flat
you know.
image right now, but all these shadows from
Well, but
you know,
but even down to how the retina is reacting to light. We see radius of it. We don't see more than we see, is what I'm trying to say. Right? Like if you take the visible light spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum, dude, it's like an 1/8 inch on a 100-foot tape. You know what I mean? It's a super tiny little segment of the electromagnetic spectrum.
right.
So if we think about the primary substance of consciousness as being an electromagnetic wave, right, or electromagnetic substance, right, that has the characteristics of an electromagnetic wave phenomenon, right, then essentially consciousness is ever attenuating, right, it's always waving, right, and as long as it's waving, reality is happening, right, from whatever filter it's happening in, right? So if you're talking about, you know, terrestrial.
Right, it's not always
If
happening.
you're talking about terrestrial organisms like cows and sheep and
in
people,
the frequencies that
right?
we detect.
Cows and sheep and people perceive consciousness in a very specific way due to these specific filters in place in the mechanism of the brain, right? But it's not produced. The brain isn't producing the consciousness, right? It's not like it's, you know, it's and that's I think one of the what's limited science a lot. It's definitely limited medicine, right? Is the idea that it's the result of a mechanical process, right? Of a machine, right? It's like
all
your body's
mechanical.
this machine, right? That we can figure out, and all we gotta do is cut it up into a bunch of little pieces and figure out how it works and how to put it back together. And yep, job done, right? It's so much more complicated than that, right? What we have been thinking about as a machine is really just a tool, right? That's used by this energy that is consciousness, right? Which is me and you and the sun and the earth and the atom. It's, you know, it's like whatever. And the coolest thing about that idea is whatever magnification you want to put on your lens, right? Let's forget about the filters for a minute, right? The filters available to the organism, right, are very much going to be, well, what's its stasis? What is it? Is it a planet? Is it a star? Is it a human?
Exactly.
Right? What, right? That's going to be the primary, like what kind of filters it has and why it has them and how it uses them, right? But the lens through which those filters are perceived by the primary consciousness,
Right.
is fundamental. And the magnification of that lens is another is another whole trip, right? When you think about that, right? It's irrespective of the filters that are in place in the receiving, in the perception of that lens. You have the magnification factor, and the coolest thing about it is, regardless of how deep you want to go with the magnification factor, it works, right? The I don't know what you want to call it from a philosophical standpoint. It's the I don't know what you it eats everything. Right?
Yeah.
What
It's
does that?
What is basically
Yeah, what does
introspective consciousness, right? The process of contemplating is what we're basically talking about this whole time. Is what is happening when we're contemplating reality? What's
Right.
really happening in consciousness, right? Or is it happening in consciousness, or is it consciousness that's happening in itself, right? And I think we've pretty much come around to the idea, if you take all the data, or you know, as much of it as you want to wade through, that suggests from an empirical standpoint, this shit ain't here, bro. There's nothing here. There's no substance to substance on a solid standpoint, right? Like really, that should be absolutely mind-blowing and earth-shattering for every single human being, is the fact that one of our most nitty-gritty sciences, physics, right, has come to the conclusion that matter is 99.9% not matter.
It's just space in between it.
What the fuck is happening there? That is what? And you're telling me that the matter that allows me to see my eyes, right? The matter that is my eyes, can only see this little tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Of what is, right? So maybe, I mean, there's a point at which philosophy kind of expands, and it gets to a place where you can't say that it's not spiritual, because you arrive at this place which some great thinkers and mystics of the 14th and 13th century, Meister Eckhart, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He was an early Christian writer in the 14th century.
Okay.
Who was pretty much killed by the church at some point because this dude was drunk on God, straight up, dude.
What do you mean by that?
He was drunk
Elaborate.
on God, literally. He was just fucking drunk on God,
just
and he
wanted
would
to
write about it emphatically. And one of his concepts that I think he kind of, I don't know if I doubt he originated it, but he was probably one of the earliest ones to write on it extensively and use it extensively in his writing, is this idea of the Godhead. Right? And the Godhead is what happens to you when you get to a point where you perceive those filters, right? And the mechanism that they are, right, and how they work. And along with it comes the realization of what is and what is not, right? So as you analyze all these, as you get deeper and deeper into consciousness, right? Introspective consciousness, which is pretty, I mean, let's face it, dude, it's prayer, right? I mean, you want to say you're talking to God, okay, great. How are you talking to him? With yourself.
Right.
Talking to him through yourself, right? So all introspective contemplation is turning that energy inside and say, okay, I'm searching. What am I searching? What is it? What is it that searches? What am I searching for? And when I ask God for something, what am I asking Him? What is He that I'm asking?
Really?
Who is it that's asking? Right? Is really that's like the biggest difference, I think, between Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy from a classical standpoint is Eastern philosophy, most of it, whether it's Buddhic or Vedic or Tibetan, Jewish, Christian, right? That derive from the East, pretty commonplace to have some time talking to yourself and God, right? So the idea of the Godhead is very commonplace, I think, in Eastern spirituality, whereas in Eastern philosophy, and you don't find a lot of true philosophy from these areas that are not basically a spiritual philosophy, right? Because of the big camp that divides, well, if you're an academic philosopher, right, there is no real, there might be some spiritual philosophy classes offered in schools, but
you're
either a philosopher or you're a priest or you're this or you're that, right? But the deeper aspects of it, there is philosophy happening on a spiritual level in most traditions, and they're considered the mystical schools of that tradition, right? So Meister Eckhart was a Christian mystic, right? And his view, his experience of God was so radically different than your average parisher walking around going to church, right? That the church was embarrassed and had to lock him up and put him away, right? Much like, you saw what they did to Jesus, right? The whole idea of the gospel according to Christianity and Catholicism, that, let's face it, even if the most progressive Protestants and non-conformists, what do they call them? Non-denominational churches, right? All of them stem and flow from an idea of and an experience of God and Christ that was handed down through the Catholic Church over centuries of refinement, which, let's face it, didn't have your interests in mind. They had their interests in mind, which was, how do we control a bunch of you kind of fuckers, right? So let's use scary ideas and a lot of not known. We don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows except the Pope, right? He's the only one with the, what I'm saying? Literally, it's like the Pope can talk to God, but you can't, right? There always has to be this, this veil between, who you are and who He is and why and all the shit, dude. And Christ was here to knock that down, right? And you threw me, and you too shall do these things. It's us, it's we, right? So it's
no, we don't have to have it on.
I personally agree with Alan Watts and gospel as it's handed down in modern day churches from everywhere is a castrated doctrine, right? That threw the baby out with the bathwater when they said, okay, Jesus was the only one that gets to have this cosmic experience of God, right? Everybody else is just you're a feeble sinner in need of redemption and salvation, lest you burn in fire forever, right? If you're a fervent believer of any dogmatic interpretation of Christianity, you got to fit in that camp somewhere. Ultimately, if you're bad, you're going to hell. If you're good, you're going to heaven, right? And you got to love thy father because thy father tells you to love thy father. And if you don't love me with all your heart, I'm going to fucking burn your soul in fire forever. Would you want to love somebody that was like that? Wouldn't that just scare the bejesus out of you, dude? Wait a minute. All I know is I have this experience of love and I don't really know what the fuck it is. But you're telling me if I don't love you with all of my being, that you're going to burn me in a lake of fire forever? Holy fuck, that scares the shit out of me because I don't really know what love is, right? All I can do is experience it and contemplate its nature, right? So you're telling me that if I don't, with absolute precision, apply it at the deepest, most fundamental aspect of my life, I'm going to burn in hell forever? Holy fuck balls. Just scared the bejesus out of me. Right. You know what I mean? Who would want that for a dad?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Sounds like kind of a scary thing.
It is pretty scary when you think about it. And that's the thing.
And I would think that, and that's a very egotistical or if you want to call it an anthropomorphic view of God.
You've got a lot of these Christians. You've got a lot of these people, right, who are doing this for a moral thing. Most of these people aren't bad. They're all doing it. You see, is because they wanna upkeep their social image with their peers. They wanna appear as if they really do care about these moral issues.
There's a huge
so they're
social
going to
component of it.
church, right? They're doing their thing. They're going to church, right? And then they can get up because the way Christianity's set up is you can do whatever you want, and as long as you come back on Sunday and just say, "Oh, my bad," it's all good in the hood. You know what I mean? And so the thing is, you get all these teenagers who are going to church, and the next day they're like, teenagers. Right, and then they grow up, and then you got these adults who are acting like that still, and you got these people who are just like, well, man, as long as the end goal is just to be like, oh, my bad, it's Sunday, I mean, I can do whatever I want. And so you still got all these people who are still doing not great things, but you also have good people, right?
The worst part
who have no time to study and see what's going on.
The biggest reason for that, really, is the whole idea. It's the
crazy
institutionism of guilt, dude. Right?
Yeah, because if you don't
institutionalized guilt, and
What's the YouTube name?
it's this
Tales from the Trip.
And that's saying a lot, dude. I mean, I'm not big on isms. Isms suck. Okay. If something's gotten to the point where it's got an ism attached to it, shit got thrown out with the bathwater a long fucking time ago, dude.
Yeah, that's very
because
true.
There's an old saying, an old truism,
good.
that, man, there's a lot of really good ideas. A lot of really good ideas. When you start to play around with beliefs, shit gets a little different. Okay?
Yeah.
And beliefs are basically just a bunch of ideas strung together. And let's face it, there's some bad ones, bro. Okay? There's some bad ideas and beliefs. But the nice thing about ideas is you can change them. You can change your ideas about things. It's harder to change a belief about something because it's been indoctrinated. Whether by you yourself, right? There's a lot of things that
around
we,
you,
as a part of our psyche,
knows it.
Think about all the things
propaganda
that, because
almost.
you're an adaptive organism, right? It benefits you to adapt to a situation, right? So let's say it's a bad fucking situation, right? And like you really should do something about it, right? And let's say you do. Let's say you're able to do something about your situation, and the environment is different now. The situation is different, but you keep reacting to it as though it wasn't.
Can you give me an example?
You're still there. Well, like battered wife syndrome, right?
Who's that?
Battered wife syndrome is a psychological. I guess it's a psychological.
A mile up in the way of that.
What's the word I'm looking for? Diagnoses of a psychological symptom, or it's a.
I just said that was done.
I guess it would be
We can't be
considered
doing that on
a
camera. Do
a
not. Did you
pathology,
turn the
right?
view
It's
to
a-
you when you did that?
No.
It's
Okay.
a psychological
that.
pathology, right, that people develop when they have been seriously abused in a long-term relationship.
Or have to
And
keep that
more
kind of
often
thing
than
kosher?
not, statistically speaking, the overwhelming majority of these people who have been abused and battered to a certain point from a chronic exposure standpoint, they will go into this mode of interpersonal perspective, if you will, right, of consciousness, that they will continue to attract those types of partners. They will continue to have those types of relationships over and over and over again. And when you look at and when you analyze a problem like that, well, what's the common factor? Her. Right? She is the common factor, right? Because if she was able to get away from the initial bad relationship, right, that did all the trauma,
Right.
then why would you ever go back, right? Why would you ever, in the first second that you got an idea that, hey, you know what, this guy has some tendencies that remind me of this other guy, why wouldn't you just, yep, sorry, can't do this, been here before, done that before, right? It's like similar to people that have been kidnapped and held in custody for extended periods of time actually come into a psychological state that they identify with their kidnapper because we're social animals, right? You can't not.
This is this
right?
thing.
They're part of your like.
Stockholm
Yeah.
syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you have to relate to, right? So even though they're the bad guy, they might be a good bad guy today, right? Yesterday they were a bad guy.
I set a sell limit at 225.
So it's,
For
I mean,
like
there's
almost 50% of what I have. Not a lot, but it
But
looks
what's
like it might hit it.
interesting, is
0.0022 sell limit for 1,171.
227 is what you got.
227.
I put in for 225, and I've got one at
I knew
at
I
25.
No, I have it at 0.0022.
I have. Oh, that probably should have sold then.
It didn't.
I have mine at 00. I have a limit sell at 0023. Then I have a limit buy at 2095.
So
Another limit buy at 215.
to get
A limit sell at 225.
So to get back to where we were talking about the stock market as being a system within the system of consciousness, right?
Mhm.
And like, what? Why should I need this device, right? As a portal to a system that I'm already a part of. Like, why wouldn't I be able to be aware of any part of the system, right? So I think that's where the idea of the Akashic record came from in ancient Hermeticism, right? The ancient schools of Egypt, and it's probably an older idea than that, bro.
Mhm.
Right? The guys that figured some shit out, I'm sure this was one of the first things they figured out. Right?
Mhm.
They said, wait a minute, there's a happening. And it's all the same fucking happening, regardless of where it's at, whether you're a star or a page. If you're able to experience it happening, then you are a self-assembling system, right? You're a self-organizing system that's experiencing it, right? So
Right.
the happening became primary, right? The teaching, right? It's the secret teaching, right? Because of the way we're wired,
Mhm.
it's everything's out here, right? We're wired, okay, you know what I mean? All of our senses that tell us who we are and what's happening receive information from outside ourselves, right? And this primary principle we're talking about is within us, it's of us, right?
Right.
So it's probably one of the last things that in organisms, the way we're designed, right? The way the brain works, right? It's thank God somebody stumbled there. You know what I mean? Because we're not wired to stumble there. We're wired to be out here, totally like, yep, here it is. It's all coming at me. I got to be ready for it. It's happening.
Right.
What's going on? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the idea of like, hey man, I'm just gonna be here for a minute. I feel safe. I don't think there's any dinosaurs trying to eat me. I'm just gonna be here for a minute and think about being here.
Right.
Like, that's
Right.
weird, right? Because thinking about being here is different than
Being
you're here, you're responding to, and you're you know.
Why
you're-
would you think about
right?
it?
Why would you think about it?
Yeah,
right?
why?
Because it's an
That's a
extra
waste of
step,
time,
right? So
right?
it's like it's a waste of time. But
Well,
dude,
wait, was that
what's
pre-planning or
fascinating?
something?
This is really cool.
Wait, now
man.
you got pre-planning or
What's
something?
fascinating about the act of doing it? This is so weird, dude. You ever done something for the first time in front of somebody else and you feel kind of funny and awkward about it?
Yeah.
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 And there's always that, right? There's always that happening. It felt the exact same way the first time I thought about what was happening inside my own brain as it was happening. And it was right after we had gotten back from our honeymoon, and I had just finished reading The Power of Now. And he talks about this concept of the witness, which is an ancient concept of Vedantic philosophy in India, that is the witness state. Okay? And the witness state is exactly that. It witnesses what's happening.
Mhm.
Right? So, but the witness is behind the ego, right? The ego is experiencing what's happening, right? The witness is witnessing the experience,
I gotta use the restroom.
right? Right? The witness is witnessing the experience of what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So you get that primary division right there, right? And it's the first. I was super pissed off because Mom called me from Tennessee and fucking told me they were coming down to visit, and she wanted me to make sure the property had been blown off. They were bringing friends down with her, right? And it was like late fall, dude. There was leaves everywhere. I was super busy at work. Had just tons of shit to do. I'm buried on that house. You know what I mean? And that was not part of my plan to blow leaves all day, right? When I had tons of work to do. And dude, for whatever reason, I let it just get me so pissed that I was pretty much ready to throw stuff at things, angry, right? So here I am all befuddled, and I had just come back from the super awesome honeymoon, right? And like there's a part of me that's starting to go, I shouldn't be like that. I should not let something like this get me this angry. Why am I this angry? Holy shit. But there's and like almost
And you can't figure
simultaneous,
it out.
almost simultaneously,
Is it what?
because this had been going on for a while. Almost simultaneously, I internally kind of recognized that, hey, wait a minute, there's a part of me that's really fucking liking being mad right now. I mean, I'm just getting that.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
getting that shit, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was mad, and I wanted to be mad, right? And so,
Yeah.
dude, the book popped into my head, right? Because Eckhart talked about, okay, the process, right?
You don't want to take a break?
So,
No,
Yeah,
and
finish it,
what he
sorry.
said, the process
Last
is,
thought.
okay, pretend that the witness is basically pretend that you're standing in front of a door. And you open the door, and you have absolutely no idea what's going to come through that door, right? So your attention is completely focused, right? Because everyone loves,
what's gonna be,
right?
what is it
Yeah,
gonna
everyone
be?
loves suspense, right? Like
Okay.
that's the ultimate candy for consciousness, right? Is I don't know
What's
what's about to
next?
happen. Anything could happen. I better be ready for it, right? So the witness is there, fucking right? And you open the door into what's happening right now. Okay, so I'm like, all right, what the fuck is happening? I'm fucking raging pissed off, right? And I literally, dude, I got the backpack on, I'm blowing leaves, right? And I'm like, I was feeling the toxic effects from the anger because I had been in such a cool place in Sedona, man, and just such a groove, dude. And the energy was so intense, right?
Right.
And I'm like, all right, so let me try this. He said, what's happening? I'm pissed off. Okay, why am I pissed off? That's the first question I asked myself. So why am I pissed off? And my answer was because I'm blowing leaves. And I actually saw, like, literally in like sentence format in my head, okay, what's happening right now? I'm angry. Why am I angry? Because I'm blowing leaves. And just
I remember you telling me
seeing
that
it in this new context
Right.
of
Just
superimposition
Instead of being
consciousness.
the person that's angry,
Right, I'm
blowing
the
leaves, you
the
can be the
witness
person that's
perceiving it,
watching
right?
the person being
I'm the witness
angry.
that's perceiving this amount of visceral fucking rage, dude. I mean, I was more pissed off than I had been in a long fucking time, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that, I think that like that's kind of when you hear like mind over matter or something, what it is actually trying to get you to step back outside of your own mind and
Or
look down at the
it's really
physical
stepping
world.
within it.
Right,
It's really
yeah,
stepping within your mind.
right. But
okay?
you're also at the same time getting out of it
because
now you're looking in from the outside and out from the inside.
well, and
right.
all I can tell you
Multiple
is from
perspectives on the
if
situation they
you've
have.
never consciously in real time applied this technique, it's gonna come across as this to your brain. You're gonna be like, why would I tell myself about what's happening right now? I know what's happening right now. I'm fucking pissed off. That's ridiculous.
Right.
Why would I do that? That's fucking
Yeah.
what a waste of time, right? Dude, all I can tell you is I went from I'm ready to throw something at something, pissed the fuck off, to I started laughing, and I kept laughing so hard that I cried for a minute, and I kind of like got my shit together, dude, and for the rest of the day, man, I was fucking just high as a cootie bug, dude.
Yeah.
Couldn't bring me down.
Remember when we were digging the trench?
Couldn't bring me down. Yes, it was very much a palpable, whoa, I like more of that. I'll take more of that. You know what I mean?
We had to dig like it was like 450 feet or something like that. I feel like it was a long.
Well, it was like 1,700 feet of ditch witching in July.
Jesus.
Heat,
Yeah,
it's
1,700.
hot.
All right, it was from all the way out of the gate, all the way back to the garage, basically.
Oh.
And we went and rented one of those walk behind ditch witches.
Yeah.
And
We
we
had
were going
actually
through that wood.
we had
line.
already run the ditch witch. We were coming back from
Yeah,
it.
but like the problem was really we ran the ditch witch, but like most of that trench digging was still with shovels. because we kept coming into roots and
Yeah,
stuff.
but I
That it
think
was
the
having
day,
a hard
I
time
think
going
the day
through.
where we got the Cosmic Mickey slip, dude.
No, I think we were digging it. Dude.
I'm telling you, dude, we were
Maybe
out there
we
with
were
the truck.
going back
Because
and-
remember that lunch we
Yeah.
braked and sat next
Yeah,
against
we
the
were
truck?
going back and shuffling it back in
Yeah,
that day.
but it was all
like,
day, just shoveling in, monotonous.
But both of us looked down and were working, and then looked up, and it was like hours later, and just like the time just, and we were way down the run. I mean, like just way down it, because we got outside of our working mind. We were
Well, and if I'm not
we were
mistaken,
occupying ourselves with some pretty
if
spiritual
I'm,
talk.
If I'm
I'd
not
say.
mistaken, I think at the time you were going through some pretty heavy stuff.
I was.
And
I was.
I kind of sensed like
I was going through the divorce at that
kind
time.
of needed a little bit of some hyper gestalt. Like,
Yeah.
We're gonna get super hyper into now.
Because I was living
You
here,
know what I mean?
living on the property
Right?
there.
Like, it was a nice day, right? Yeah, it's hot.
That's
We're
okay.
doing some shitty work, but like, what's happening now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously, everything that's happened then and might happen when, right, was predominating your mind.
Yeah.
It was like, you were like that a lot back then, dude. Swimming in it, dude. Oh.
Yeah, it's really easy. to let
Struggling to
yourself
stay
get wrapped
afloat
up
with
in
it.
problems,
All right.
You know what I mean?
It's intense, dude.
This is
consciousness is like that, dude. It's
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah.
I should say,
I've learned a lot from all that.
egoic
now.
consciousness is like
It's turned into good experience. I'd say.
ego is a trip and a half, man, and that's really primarily was kind of
Yeah,
at that
sort of
point
the truth.
that was our doorway into this aspect of consciousness,
That's
because
right.
I was totally keyed on the ego back then.
Yeah.
Dude, it's fucking fascinating to just think about what it is.
Yeah,
It's the idea of you tell to you
yeah.
all day. Like, that's a fucking weird thing to think about. Like, wow,
That's
when
it.
did that start? Where did that come from? Why do I have that? You know what I mean? How did I get that? Do we all have it? Does it all the same? Like,
Well, as far as my research, and by that I mean communicating with other humans.
right, they all seem to have one. You know what I mean?
Everybody seems to have an ego, and by that I mean everybody seems to have an idea that they're their own individual identity,
Yes.
with their own ideas,
Yes.
and their own memories, and their own self, and their own self is typically regarded as a higher value than all other things on earth, right?
That's
As
primary.
if it's the
That's primary.
center of life.
Right.
Like
Well,
if I didn't
basically the-
exist, would there be a purpose for any of you?
It's
You know what I mean?
It's a locked
Right.
away.
And that's
into the-
a legit question, right? Are y'all all here because I exist, or do I get to be here because you all exist, or
Is it like?
Well, but
I've had
I
the thought-
exist
I've had
and you
thoughts that,
exist
like,
because
I
you
exist.
exist and I
But
exist?
So
we
what
can
I've
say
had-
that the experience of that existence is something that, whether you're talking about yourself or all
But
the
I'll tell you
humans on
right
the
now,
planet, it's
I
all
know I
happening
have
at the
also
same
figured
time,
this
right?
out, and I think
that's
it's
the-
also the vice versa. You exist differently in my world than you exist in your world.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree.
And you exist, everybody that I know
Absolutely.
outside of me seems to exist differently in their own world than they do exist to me.
Yeah.
But if you think
And
about
some people that I know seem to sometimes not even exist in my world.
if you think
It's
about
kind of
it
weird.
on a
They come in and out of existence.
when you zoom out the magnifier onto the super system, like right, you go from my personal experience to my social experience, my group experience, right, my family and my friends, right, to the broader society, right, like, and then like you get onto a world level, and then it's like, well, maybe it's very necessary for this automatic locked away in the experience of the experiencer to happen because you're part of the feedback mechanism that is
So
didn't have this ability,
Yeah.
if you didn't have this ability that was pregnant with the germ of the idea that you're somehow different than the rest of the thing, right? Then you might not transmit signal properly.
That's pretty interesting.
You
so,
are going to become a cancerous thing in the system and not transfer signal properly, and it would be a bad. I shouldn't say bad. It would
Patrick,
be a disease. It would be a state of dishealth for the system, right? So most self-organizing systems have all that shit worked, man. Like, it was all.
Kyle, do you have a
taken
link
account
to
for.
the last podcast we did that you
What
can
do you-
put in
what's
the
going on?
comments here?
Sure
The live
do.
chat. Patrick's in on
What's
the
that
live
on?
chat.
Is it chatting?
Yeah, there's live chat here with Patrick so far. I think he's our. Oh, is there 5 viewers?
Well, huh.
So I was watching. Can we
I don't know
see?
how long you people have been with us, but we've been far.
Oh, it's only been an
Does
hour
it let
and a
us
half.
see who else watching? I bet you can see, Kyle. We're not logged into like. You need to give me administrator access to this account
Hey,
or
man,
something, right?
It might have only been an
Or
hour
to the
and a
video.
half.
I don't know.
I
But we
don't know
have
how to
been-
do all that. I just set it set
We
up
have
like
been
this.
everywhere. You know what I mean? We've been
I
everywhere.
wish we could see who all was watching.
That would be kind of weird, don't you think? Just knowing who was watching.
That link you did for join Robinhood, it doesn't actually have any link.
Oh, you can see that. I thought I had.
I can
to
see
hit
the
save or
see
something.
the text, but no link.
Yeah. Okay. So just send your links.
Can you put a?
I can put your link.
Yeah,
and
I'll
email
put,
it to me.
man, I
yeah,
forgot
you
I
need
had
to
my
put the
band
link in the description. I can't do that. I can just do it in the live chat.
Okay, put it in the live chat, and then I'll just copy and paste it. So you guys need to get on Robinhood stocks. I've been interested in this stuff. It's free to get into. Yeah, we'll get that link here in a minute. It's loading up for me.
You want to know the craziest thing about that first time you ever do that? It's going to feel really funny. You're going to be like, all right, this is stupid, but here we go.
Right.
You will, aside from just instantly just being overwhelmed with just laughter and good, joyous feeling, right? The energy of it. Right?
Yeah, just Kyle, put the link to the last podcast in the description.
It is this.
Like to the channel or whatever we were doing on that. What was that app we were on? What was
The Twitcher?
Twitch? Yeah.
It was like an intuitive, instantaneous recognition of freedom.
And yeah, let me get that link. Hang on. Oh, scratch my head on the video. Look like a monkey. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
I don't-
Sorry,
I
Joe
don't see
Rogan.
it.
I'm not trying to impersonate you doing the monkey thing.
Remember, Kyle, you remember being a kid, and you had to be doing something all fucking day.
Yeah.
You really didn't want to be doing that something. You wanted to be outside riding a big wheel or
Yeah,
whatever it
doing
was, dude.
something.
And all you were consumed with all day was, when can I get to go do something other than this, right?
Yeah.
You remember the feeling that you would have when you got to go, right? And you got to,
Oh, man.
the second you got away, right, and got to go do what it was you wanted to do in the first place, right? That elation, that experience of like, finally I'm free, right? It was like, it felt like that. Very, very intense, you know what I mean? What better, right? It was like,
Okay, can you do that? Can you put that? I just put it in the live chat. Can you put that in the description? That'd be great.
because it was.
Yeah, can you put that in the description? That'd be great. Not in the live chat, Kyle. In the description of the video.
The description of
That way, it's in there and everybody can see it, not just the people that are in the live chat.
Yeah, but they're
Like people
I
in the
don't-
future that look up the video.
Yeah, I don't think they're up on there. I don't see them on there.
Are you uploading? Did you
Doesn't have-
Did you change the description?
Cat doesn't
No,
have to wait until
on
it's
the-
done.
on
You
the
to
Twitch,
upload it.
I don't
No, on
see
the
this.
video for YouTube.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Our old videos aren't on Twitch anymore?
I'm not, I mean,
They
sh-
disappear or something?
They should be there. You know, the other videos that I've done.
Get
are
it
up
right,
there.
Kyle.
But they disappeared.
Yeah, I guess.
Is that what you're
they
saying?
have. I don't-
Okay.
I'm
Now that
sorry.
we're done with the Twitch thing, if they're well,
What happened?
I don't know
Is there
why.
a
that's-
Watergate? Is there stuff missing? It's terrible.
Well, yeah. So I got my other videos that I've done like way forever ago up on there, but not the.
didn't we
others
put
that
them in
we've
a
done.
different folder?
No, I don't think that's even possible. I think it's just all
Now
the
your
videos.
keys.
Did you didn't delete them on purpose though?
No.
Do you need help, love?
Do you need assistance?
I don't know, but whatever.
You know what it was, Kyle?
Time for a break.
You know what it was, dude?
You know what it is? It's time for a break. You want to tell everybody? You know,
It
tell
was
everybody
better
bye.
than a get out of school free card or a get out of jail free card, dude. It was a get out of yourself free card. You know what I mean? And it's like, whoa, what? You telling me that stupid little thing that I just did is really the key to getting outside myself? But it was really, I guess, more of the realization of what that means, dude, right? Because when you first start thinking about that, when somebody first tells you about it, or you read it in a book or whatever, that, hey man, like you are not your experiences. You are not this body. You are right. You are so much infinitely more, dude. It would blow your. You can't even. You know what I mean? Like, dude, the biggest idea that your brain could ever come up with about yourself is like whale shit compared to the experience of not yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's bizarre, dude, right? It's that, to me, is one of the most incredible aspects of the phenomena of going inside for just a second. You know what I mean? Just for a second. In whatever situation, you know, particularly if it's a scenario that, like, shit, man, this kind of thing always gets to me. You know what I mean? And if you find yourself being annoyed by the fact that it always gets to you, especially if it's something that you have to do, you cannot change it, dude. You gotta, you know, traffic happens, right? Right? People happen, relationships happen, right? You gotta work with people, you gotta interact with people, and let's face it, sometimes they're not always gonna do what you want them to do, or what you think they're gonna do, or what you wish they would do, or, you know what I mean? People do crazy shit, dude. So it's like,
Sounds good to me.
it's, dude, from an internal, like, an inner medicine, like an inner well-being standpoint, dude, it was
That's
like
right.
instant super pill, man.
Yeah.
That, like, hey, wow.
You followed my link?
All right, I think it's time for a break. I gotta go to
You
work
signed
in
up?
7 hours.
Then go up to the upper left-hand corner.
Thank
All right,
you.
Are you
everybody.
guys done
Go to
streaming?
free
Say bye, Jules.
Bye, Jules.
Right here.
Hey, everybody.
Hi. I know. I was
Have a
looking at
fun trip.
myself on the TV.
You gonna tell him to say bye?
Well,
You
did
want
you
to say
link in your
bye?
bank account and stuff?
I
So
wouldn't
just give it a
even
little
worry
bit, and there'll
about
be a
it.
free stock there after verifying
All right.
everything. So. As
Time
long
for
as
a
you followed
break.
my link.
Break
So,
time.
yeah.
I think we're getting off. It's 12. I doubt anybody's getting up to go back
Jules,
to
you'll
it.
have to listen to our cast.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty.
usually listen to you guys because I'm in the other
Check it out on
room.
your way to work tomorrow or something, dude.
I
We'll
don't
see.
have to work tomorrow.
Usually
Or
it comes
Thursday,
in like
or
10 to
Friday.
15 minutes.
What's that? Did
What?
I just hear Jules said she's
Vac-
gonna get on Robinhood tomorrow? What?
Vacation.
All right, everybody, say bye. Say bye to the stream,
Lower your
everybody.
head down just a little bit.
Bye, guys.
All right, everybody. Say bye.
everybody.
All right, so we're just taking a break, or are we done for the night?
It's 12:33.
We're done for now. If we come back on, we do. But
Catch you guys another day. We'll see what it
thanks,
is.
guys. Sorry it was a little sporadic today. We got a lot of this technological stuff taken care of
Yeah, it's
and
looking
set up good.
Yeah, it's
So
gonna be good.
next time will be a little more me
Yeah.
not getting up and going so much.
Yeah. Right on, everybody. Catch you guys later.
Peace, love, happiness
Love
to
and
the
light.
world.
Positivity. Tell us from the trip.
Be well.